There is a silence that has sat at the very center of the Sussex story for years. It's a void so glaring, so loud, that its very existence tells a much darker story than any interview or memoir ever could. Think about it for a moment. We have spent the last half-decade watching Harry and Meghan burn every single bridge leading back to London. They have named names, recounted private arguments, and aired grievances that have been quietly accumulating for decades. They sat across from Oprah and made accusations that shook the foundations of the British monarchy. Harry wrote Spare, arguably the most explosive royal book in living memory, attacking his father, his brother, and even his late grandmother's closest advisors. But through all that fire, through all the truth-telling and exposure of the firm, they left one man almost entirely untouched. Prince Andrew, a man whose reputation has been comprehensively damaged on the global stage, received exactly one paragraph in Harry's 400-page book. And even then, it wasn't an attack. It was a complaint about Harry's own security arrangements. Why the silence? Why? When they were willing to burn down the institution they once served, did they draw a protective circle around the Duke of York? What exactly did Andrew know about them? And more importantly, what does his ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson, know now that she has finally been pushed to the edge in 2026? Something has shifted. The shadows that have long protected the Yorks are being pulled back by the very people who once guarded them. The British royal family is navigating one of the most turbulent periods in its modern history. And at the center of this storm is a woman who has spent 30 years being underestimated. Sarah Ferguson is preparing to write a book, and the people most terrified by that prospect are not the king's advisors or the courtiers at Buckingham Palace. No, the people who are truly losing sleep over what Fergie might commit to paper are Harry and Meghan themselves. This is the story of a mutual protection pact that is finally crumbling, and the explosive revelations that may soon become public. To understand why this is happening now, we have to look back at the social circles of the early 2000s, the so-called yacht years that some claim the mainstream media is still reluctant to discuss. Long before Meghan Markle became a duchess, she was an actress navigating the elite social scenes of London, Toronto, and the Mediterranean. These were not just standard Hollywood parties. They were the ultra-exclusive circles of Soho House and private members' clubs, where some of the world's most powerful people spent their summers. For years, rumors have circulated that Prince Andrew's and Meghan's paths may have crossed long before that fateful introduction in 2016. There are claims of documented evidence and photographs that were reportedly removed and later resurfaced, showing Meghan moving within the same social circles as individuals associated with Andrew during his most controversial years. We're talking about the network surrounding Marcus Anderson and the high-end yachting culture that defined the summers of the global elite. If Andrew and Meghan shared acquaintances, or if they attended the same private events, then Harry's silence begins to look less like family loyalty and more like something else entirely, and more like a tactical necessity. It was a tit-for-tat arrangement. I don't mention your history and you don't mention mine. This was the silent agreement that kept the Sussexes from ever truly turning their weapons on the York branch of the family. But in 2026, the variables have changed. The protection is gone. Sarah Ferguson is facing a reality that looks hauntingly similar to her life in 1996. The money is gone. The titles have effectively been retired. As of late 2025, she and Andrew have been officially iced out of the royal framework. The eviction notices for Royal Lodge, the home she has shared with Andrew for years despite their divorce, have finally been served. Fergie is currently moving between borrowed villas and high-end bolt holes. While reports describe her spending extended time at a discreet wellness retreat in Switzerland, this isn't just a vacation. It's a desperate attempt to find safe harbor while her world collapses. A stay at this retreat costs an eye-watering amount per night, and friends have been whispering that she is effectively without funds. This combination, expensive habits and an empty bank account, is the specific recipe that has always made Fergie most volatile and most dangerous. When she has nothing left to lose, she talks. And she doesn't just talk, she sells. Publishing agents have already begun circling. They know that a no-holds-barred account from the woman, who was in the room during the Sussexes' most private moments, could be worth a $20 million advance. Sarah understands the industry. She has written more than 60 books in her career. She knows exactly what the public wants to read. And she knows that the most powerful stories are the ones people have tried hardest to bury. The most valuable currency she possesses is the truth about what happened behind the closed doors of Frogmore Cottage and Royal Lodge. You see, Fergie wasn't just another royal relative. She was one of the few people Meghan appeared to trust. During those early, chaotic days when Meghan was trying to navigate the firm, she gravitated toward the Yorks. They saw themselves as the other branch of the family, the ones who were misunderstood and unfairly treated by senior royals such as William and Catherine. They spent long afternoons discussing the hierarchy and the rigid rules of palace life. Fergie witnessed moments that few others saw. She saw behavior and interactions that never made it into the carefully crafted public narratives. She also saw how the late Queen, a woman whom Fergie genuinely revered, was spoken about behind closed doors. And then there is the shadow of the Epstein-Maxwell connection. This is the part of the story that makes everyone in Montecito break out in a cold sweat. In 2011, leaked emails revealed Fergie referring to Jeffrey Epstein as a supreme friend after he helped her resolve a significant financial debt. But some believe the connections run deeper. Over the years, photographs have surfaced showing overlaps between Meghan's broader social circles and individuals connected to Ghislaine Maxwell. Critics argue that these connections have not received the same level of scrutiny as other royal controversies. In a book written by a woman with nothing left to lose, some speculate that those relationships and associations could be examined in far greater detail. Virginia Giuffre's attorney, David Boies, once stated publicly that he believed Meghan Markle may have had information relevant to the case involving Prince Andrew. He expressed interest in her testimony because he believed she might possess first-hand knowledge of matters connected to the investigation. The Duke's associations and the women within his social circle became the subject of intense scrutiny. That statement was made in a legal context by a highly respected attorney, and it has never been fully explained. Why did the Sussexes shield Andrew during the height of the allegations against him? Because if the dam were to break for Andrew, it might also break for the social circles Meghan inhabited before her marriage. For years, it appeared to be a case of mutually assured destruction until now. As we move further into 2026, the dynamics within the royal family have entered a phase that some insiders are calling a period of radical clarity. This is the era of King William's influence, even before his eventual coronation. William does not operate the way his grandmother did. The late Queen was a master at absorbing scandal, managing crises quietly, and keeping the family united even when it was under immense pressure. William, however, appears to have reached a different conclusion. He believes that the only way to protect the monarchy is to remove any source of ongoing controversy. In his view, that may include the York branch of the family. The Cold War between the Prince of Wales and the York family has reportedly grown even colder. There have been reports suggesting that William has sought greater transparency regarding the finances and business dealings of Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie. The claims have sent shockwaves through royal circles. Why the scrutiny? According to these reports, William wants a clearer understanding of how certain royal lifestyles have been maintained, while Prince Andrew remains outside public duties and Sarah Ferguson faces ongoing financial challenges. He is reportedly looking for potential business entanglements and financial arrangements that could involve the royal name being used for private gain. Beatrice and Eugenie have reportedly resisted some of these efforts, and in response, William is said to have drawn a firm line regarding the future role of the York family within a streamlined monarchy. A line has been drawn. They have been excluded from the inner circle, removed from royal photographs, and effectively told that their future in the firm is over. This is the moment Sarah Ferguson realizes that her daughters are being punished for the sins of their parents, and she has no leverage left to save them. If staying quiet has not helped her daughter's standing, then what is the point of silence? This is where the nuclear option comes in. Fergie's 1996 memoir was so candid that it cost her the friendship of Princess Diana. A single line about borrowing Diana's shoes and developing plantar warts was seen as a betrayal of the highest order. If Fergie was willing to lose Diana over a throwaway line, imagine what she might be willing to do to the Sussexes in 2026, when her very survival is on the line. The version of Fergie we are seeing now is the most dangerous version possible. She is no longer trying to manage the narrative. She is looking to blow it up. She has watched Harry and Meghan play the victim for years, while she was the one who actually stayed loyal to the Queen. She was the one who took in the corgis. She was the one who stayed by Andrew's side through every storm and every disaster, even when it cost her everything. And yet, it is the Sussexes who have the $100 million deals and the California mansion. The resentment is palpable. In her upcoming book, Fergie is expected to reveal the truth about Megxit, a term she reportedly finds hilarious because, as far as she saw it, it was not a voluntary exit so much as a push. She witnessed moments when palace staff were brought to tears. She witnessed demands that were so unreasonable they were laughed at behind closed doors. But more importantly, she knows the details of what some in royal circles describe as the hostage situation Harry's life has become. There is a growing sentiment within the York circle that Harry has been completely brainwashed. Since the wedding, he has gone from a man who loved his country and his family to someone who seemingly hates everything he once stood for. Fergie saw the change happen in real time. She saw the isolation tactics, the way old friends were cut off, and the way Harry was moved into a dull life in California, where he appears to play a secondary role in his own story. The book will also likely touch on the censored topics that the palace has allegedly spent millions trying to keep out of the headlines. These include private health crises, moments when individuals buckled under the pressures of royal life, and silent arrangements reportedly made to keep legal accusations from reaching the courtroom. Fergie was there for all of it. She is the witness who no longer has a side to protect. She is not an establishment plant, and she is not a Sussex loyalist. She is a woman who has been discarded by both sides, and that freedom is terrifying to everyone involved. The irony of this entire situation is almost poetic. Harry and Meghan spent years protecting Andrew because they thought his secrets were useful. They believed those secrets were the only ones capable of harming them. What they failed to realize was that, by protecting Andrew, they were also protecting the one woman who could eventually expose them. Fergie's loyalty was the only thing standing between the Sussexes and the uncomfortable truth surrounding their time within the royal family. Now that William has removed the benefits of that loyalty, the floodgates may be opening. The Netflix situation adds another layer of complexity. As the streaming giant looks to move beyond the traditional format of The Crown, reports suggest it is exploring special event productions focused on specific royal scandals. The Andrew story is said to be high on that list. If Netflix were to produce a high-budget dramatization of the Andrew saga, it would need sources. It would need insider perspectives on the social circles, the yacht trips, and the private dinners. And who would be better positioned to provide that insight than someone who was actually there? For those in Montecito, this represents a nightmare scenario. A world in which private secrets are no longer buried behind legal settlements or non-disclosure agreements, but instead are brought to life in ultra-high definition for millions of viewers. The Sussex brand relies heavily on the perception that they are the primary narrators of their own story. If Fergie speaks, that dynamic changes. They would no longer be viewed solely as victims of palace politics. Instead, they could become subjects in a far more complicated and potentially damaging narrative told by a family member who witnessed events firsthand. As we reach the end of this chapter in 2026, one question remains: was it worth it? Harry and Meghan believed they could control the narrative by leaving, by litigating, and by remaining silent on certain matters. They believed that their silence regarding Andrew would buy them peace. Instead, it may have bought them a front row seat to their own potential exposure. The mutual protection pact has become a trap, and the woman holding the key is the one they believed they could afford to discard. Sarah Ferguson now stands at a crossroads. On one side is the silence that has brought her little in return. No permanent home, no financial security, and no clear future for her daughters. On the other side is a book deal, a significant payday, and the opportunity to have the final word. She has watched the institution protect its own, and she has come to realize that she is no longer considered one of them. For the first time in her life, she is entirely her own agent. And in the world of royal drama, a person with nothing left to lose is often the most dangerous person in the room. But that is not even the most unsettling part of the story. To truly understand the leverage Fergie may hold in 2026, you have to examine the reality surrounding Royal Lodge. For months, the British press has been captivated by reports of Andrew remaining inside the aging estate, refusing to leave despite mounting pressure and ongoing speculation about its future. Yet Fergie is not merely a passive observer in that standoff. She is reportedly one of the few people capable of navigating the sensitive discussions taking place behind the scenes between the Duke and those managing the King's financial interests. In those tense late-night conversations, information and influence have reportedly become forms of currency. According to persistent rumors within elite circles, the King offered Andrew a smaller, more manageable residence in exchange for one thing: a signed non-disclosure agreement. That would cover not only the past, but also the specific details of the Sussexes' financial entanglements with the Yorks. And Sarah said no. That refusal is the smoking gun of this entire saga. Why would a woman facing a mountain of debt and social exile turn down a guaranteed roof over her head? The only logical answer is that she believes her story is worth significantly more than a cottage on the Windsor estate. She has watched the Sussex brand build itself on a reputation for being unfiltered, and she realizes that she may be the only person capable of providing the missing perspective on what was really happening behind the scenes. She remembers the frantic phone calls in the middle of the night during the Megxit negotiations. She remembers the specific discussions that took place when the Sussexes realized they would not be allowed to become half-in, half-out royals. Then there is the psychological toll on Harry, which Fergie is uniquely positioned to analyze. By 2026, the California dream has reportedly begun to look more like a gilded cage. Reports have described Harry as appearing increasingly subdued at high-profile events, a man who seems to have traded his heritage for a life centered on media appearances and content production that many critics argue is losing public interest. Fergie knows exactly what that transition feels like. She lived through a version of the same story in the 1990s. The Weight Watchers endorsements, the tabloid scandals, and the desperate attempts to remain relevant after the palace doors had been firmly closed. Some observers believe she sees similar patterns in Harry's situation. But unlike Harry, she does not have a reported $100 million media deal to protect her. She has her story. And in 2026, that story may be her most powerful asset. Here is where the narrative becomes even darker. There are whispers that Fergie's book will not focus solely on the Sussexes' behavior toward staff members or the late Queen. Some speculate that it could delve into the Soho House years, the era when elite social networks were expanding through a complex web of influential figures, ambitious newcomers, and powerful gatekeepers. Fergie is said to know many of the people who operated within those circles. She knows who received invitations to exclusive gatherings and who disappeared from guest lists when they became liabilities. The Sussexes have spent years attempting to distance themselves from certain associations, but critics argue that Fergie was present during many of the relationships and introductions they would now prefer to leave in the past. As the 2026 London Book Fair approaches, speculation continues to intensify. Reports suggest that Harry and Meghan have consulted top-tier legal advisors to explore whether any publication containing private details could be challenged. But how do you stop a woman who feels she has nothing left to lose? You cannot threaten her with social exile. She believes she is already there. You cannot threaten her with the loss of status or titles. Those losses have already occurred. The irony of this moment is difficult to ignore. The very people Harry and Meghan believe they were protecting may ultimately become the ones who challenge the narrative surrounding their departure from royal life. The silence that allegedly defined the Sussex-Andrew understanding for so many years has not merely been broken. It has been shattered. And what may be unfolding now appears to be the final act of a decade-long royal drama. Long drama in which the outsiders of the family are finally turning on one another. When Fergie's book finally hits the shelves, it will not just be a memoir. It will be a manual on how the firm actually operates when the cameras are off and the masks are removed. It is the story the Sussexes never wanted you to hear, told by the one woman who was there for every shocking second of it. If you were Fergie, standing in a borrowed villa with an empty bank account and a lifetime of secrets, would you take the king's silence money? Or would you finally tell the world what happened on those yachts, inside those palaces and during those so-called hostage years in California. The clock is ticking, and in 2026, the nuclear duchess is ready to push the button. Drop your theories below. Do you think Harry can survive the truth Sarah is about to reveal? I'm reading every comment, and I can't wait to see your take on this final, revealing chapter of the royal saga. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated on the fallout. We'll see you in the next one.